But
I'm just excited for the day that Tenchu finally gets its remaster and Russ just like shits his pants live on Twitch.
Oh, he might very well. He's gonna jump for joy, and you're gonna just watch his pants fill with this. Maybe I'll convince him to do it on purpose on camera.
Yeah, we'll have to give him a bet. If Tenchu releases, he has to soil himself on camera.
Russ, you heard it here first. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CoinDrop podcast, episode 86. And as you can see, if you are watching the VOD, Russ is not here with us tonight. It is just me and the venerable Mike, my editor, or our editor in any case. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. It was actually a pretty slow week for me. As you said, the last two episodes, Basic Bitch Week, I had no claims for work, so I kind of just got to have a free week. And then yesterday, or a couple days ago, one of my other guys decided to just not call to like let people know that he wasn't going to come in and do his route for the day.
No call, no show. Awesome.
Yeah. So my dispatcher, he called me and he was like, "Hey, we got a no call, no show. You had a pretty big route today. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, give me the route." It took me like 8 hours.
That's good pay though. Right?
Yeah, it's good pay. And then apparently he also was going to give me the other half of his route on Monday if he didn't show up yesterday, which he didn't tell me if he showed up yesterday or not. So we'll see. Aside from that, I got paid and I was feeling good about my accomplishments with my new job. So I treated myself to one of my old model of monitors that I had way back in the day. I say way back in the day, it was like 5 years ago. It's just an LG panel. I found it on Facebook for like $200. Talked the guy down to like $140. So nice. Yeah. So now I have a nice big monitor right in front of me.
Good stuff. Yeah, my week wasn't as quiet as the week before. I found out that my finances are actually rather dire at the moment. And that we'll see if I can pay my bills next month. Although it did quickly calm down a little bit. And what I mean by that is I had a root canal done last year. If you guys have been following us for any length of time, you probably remember when I told you, I don't know, 6 months ago. For some reason, they sent me a check in late October, and when I got it, it said it was from like Star Dental or something, which is not the place that I went to. And so I was like, "Is this real?" I don't know.
A check or a bill?
A check. It was a check for $1,135 or something like that. And I was like,
interesting.
Oh, this doesn't feel right, you know. And I tried calling the phone number on it, and I tried looking it up to make sure it was real or whatever, and I couldn't find anything. So I'm just like, I'll just put this aside, And the funny thing is, I forgot about it until I don't know, a week ago or so. And the day I found it, or the day after I found it, the place I got my root canal done at, they were like, "Hey, we sent you a check last October and you never cashed it, and it's been returned to us." And I was like, "Oh, I found that yesterday." So that thing's real, huh? And they're like, "Yeah, it's real. It's a refund." And I didn't have the heart to ask why, because it was a refund of $1,100, and I just was like, "Yes, please give it to me now. Thanks."
Just put it in my hands. Audio listeners, I'm tapping my hand aggressively.
Yes. And so I'm waiting for that to come back in. No big deal, but that's an extra $1,100 in my bank account, which will be very nice. If you guys have been watching or listening to us for any length of time, you'll know that I had to buy my wife a new car somewhere around August or so. September. I can't remember exactly when, but we finally got rid of the old one. That was an extra $1,000 in our pocket because we just went to the local dealer because we didn't want to deal with people on Facebook and whatnot. It has major engine issues and needs pretty much an engine remake. So $1,000 was like, okay, cool, take it off my hands, So I would have liked more. $1,000 doesn't sound like a lot for a car, but one that's basically broken, I'm okay with that. And then I pay my taxes, so I'm getting money back from that too. And I'll be able to breathe a little easier. I'm more than likely going to ask for a layoff from my current job so I can go to a different one that has overtime, and that'll also make me, breathe easier.
Yeah, you're still apprenticing, right?
Yes, I'm in the apprenticeship. Yeah, I've got less than a year and a half left
for that.
Yeah, I've got a little less than a year and a half left. I will be making close to double what I'm making now come September of next year. So I'll be making almost $40 an hour September of next year. So
they don't.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say they don't give you overtime as a apprentice. Or are you talking
overtime
different?
Overtime is just, so I'm in construction, right? So jobs end and begin all the time. And sometimes there's a shit ton of work that needs to get done and we work overtime. And other times it's just, work 40. It just depends on the job.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm not working overtime because there's no work at my current job, there's no jobs at my current contractor that has overtime. And so there's one in particular that I have in mind that's always working overtime because of the nature of their work. And while I don't necessarily want to go back there, it's overtime, and that's an extra $1,700 in my bank account every month, and that would be, very nice because that's more than I have in my bank account right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on from the preamble, we've got a little bit of housekeeping from last week, more than normal. Last episode, we made a little mistake and accidentally gave you a sneak peek at the Patreon side. We'll just look at it as a free bonus for you guys. So now you know what it's like on the back end. You get more of what we talk about, and we give you a little bit of extra, games to look forward to and all that other fun stuff. That was a total one-side accident bonus for you, and so if you liked it, please look at the Patreon. We've got it for as cheap as $3 a month. You can, that's less than a cup of coffee. You can get all that content and help support us, and hopefully we'll be able to use that and eventually give you guys some more. The next bit, we did talk about this last week, or I think we talked about this last week.
Yeah, it was last week. The Facebook restrictions. We did hit the 100 follower mark, but we still have to wait until our page is 60 days old. So we just can't stream until that's done. Like
Russ said last week, now that I'm remembering, we didn't do our homework well enough in as far as the 100 followers and 60-day age of the account, and we hit our 100 followers, so we're good there. But we have to be 2 months old before we can start streaming. So that will come in due time when the exact date is figured out. We just haven't done the math on it yet. When the exact date is figured out, that's when we will move over there, and we'll of course let you know as it gets closer. As of now, we will be sticking to Twitch.
Yeah. To be fair, when I was looking at it, the last time I think I used Facebook streaming for gaming stuff, or just like as a professional page, I think was during the COVID times. It's weird to say now. The COVID times when everything was locked down. I think the only restriction they had was the 60-day thing. I don't think they had a followers restriction.
Yeah,
but I guess they changed. Really minimal, Yeah, a lot of stuff changed when Mixer disappeared, and Facebook was just bringing in everybody that they could. So they added a bunch of new requirements and things just to kind of hammer down on the competition so as to say.
Yeah, well, if you look at, there's a lot of big streamers that have moved over to Facebook as well, like Stone Mountain 64. He moved away from Twitch and started directly and only on Facebook. So, there's obviously a reason to be there. And so we're doing it mostly because we're hoping that it'll help us grow more in the future. And that's what we want. We want to be able to grow so we can, like I said, give you guys more. Hopefully we'll be able to do giveaways in the future, and we'll be able to do, competitions, all that other fun stuff. That's the plan. And just we got to keep working towards it, and that's the plan. So hopefully within the next month, basically 2 months at this point, we'll be up over there. Last but not least, in the housekeeping side of things, we do have a Facebook, as we've been saying, so please go over there and like it if you haven't yet. please share us. We have plenty of content on it now, or not plenty, but we have content on it now as far as clips and stuff, and we will be adding as we go. We've got plenty of a backlog to add stuff. And like I said, share it, like and share, all that fun stuff. Also, we threw a poll up there, and we're trying to figure out how to make those polls last longer, but it seems like we only have a few day limit, like 4 days, something like that. We had a poll up there for our community event, which will be on the 22nd. It will be here on Twitch, or it will be on Twitch rather, and we will be playing the game chosen by you, the listeners. In this case, we had, I think it was 7 votes, and 5 of them went to Helldivers, and the other 2 went to Dead by Daylight. So we will be playing Helldivers the 22nd, and if you guys have the game, come join us. Let's put work in for Super Earth. But in any case, moving on to the main topics, the first one of the day is how do you word when someone gets out of their mouth and wants it to sound and look good?
I think actually one of my UK friends has a word for this. It's called what the hell? I think it's called slogging. Something like that. Slogging. Some like weird term where basically they're just shoveling you the same shit for like, different story, same shit type thing.
Yeah. I mean, so the deal here is basically after the failure, which we've mentioned a couple of weeks in a row now, the failure of Dragon Age Veilguard, the CEO of EA decided to say, I don't know how he got this thought process. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of successful live service titles, but he says that Dragon Age Veilguard failed due to not being a live service title. So, Mike, give me your thoughts.
My patience with this CEO has worn so thin that I can pretty much form an entire opinion just from the fucking title at this point. Like, every article that I come across, it's like the CEO of EA has said this. I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That really does track. I am really confused though, because I was watching a Game Ranks video where they kind of touched on this a little bit, and he made a really good point that EA makes single player games. Like, they have a track record currently, like as of today, that they sell really good. Yep. And the CEO is seeing those numbers and is still under some fucking weirdo delusion, whatever you want to call it, that if it's not a live service game, it's not going to sell well. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. Logistically,
it confuses me too, because when EA was like the shit developer or publisher in the world, and everyone hated them no matter what they made, no matter how good it was, everyone just didn't like them, didn't give them even the light of day. And so they made a lot of good changes and fixed a lot of what they were doing wrong. And after saying, I don't know how long ago it was now, but after saying that single player games are dead, they pretty quickly flipped that, started making single player games again, and as you said, they sold well.
Yeah, they sold really good.
I honestly have no idea how he could say that live service would have solved this game, especially when this game was supposed to be a live service, and that they canceled that and made it a single player game. I mean, I guess maybe that's his thought process. The game was originally going to be a live service title in some way, shape, or form, and then they swapped it to single player. And he's like, "Well, if we hadn't have fucking swapped it, it would have been better." Maybe that's his thought. I don't know.
I can actually see him just being like that. Wow, if we hadn't have fucking swapped it. Just like, what's that old actor from Three's Company? He always walked in at like the most inopportune moments. No, not 2.5 Men. Three's Company.
2.5 Men. You're right.
Yeah, he was his landlord. He always walked in at like the most inopportune moments.
I don't know any names. I don't know.
Whenever
it's a show.
I can see the CEO being exactly like that old man, just being completely delusional, walking in and just like seeing inopportune moments and just reacting like that, like, oh my god, if only.
Yeah, perhaps the perhaps the CEO didn't agree with making it a single player focused game, but he was, voted out or whatever, and it was the board or investors or whatever that decided to make it a single player game, and he didn't like that. So this is him saying, "See, motherfuckers, I'm right," even though there's no way to prove that.
It's just
I don't know how you can read any forum, any online community, any discussion period about live service titles and says we should make rules. Everyone's so fatigued with them these days. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's the odd success now and again, like Marvel Rivals, but like they don't come around very often anymore. There's like one or two a year that are popular. In this case, we had in 2024 we had what, Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, and was there any other successful live service titles? I mean, I guess you could technically consider Call of Duty, but I mean, that's popular every year. So of course it's not going to, go away. Fortnite continued its success.
That's also like, that's not even considering that the live service titles that came out from Sony didn't have any issues. Like the whole PSN network debacle was a whole fucking ordeal, but like at least they learned from it within like 8 months.
What are you referring to?
Remember when Helldivers 2 came out and then they made PSN accounts a requirement, and now like recently they were like, okay, it's not a requirement, but if you make an account, we'll give you these bonuses for your games. Yeah. So at least like, just speaking of live service developers, at least somebody is fucking getting the point somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I looking at the amount of live service titles that PlayStation has canceled, I think they really have realized, like they said there was 14 of them in the works, and I think at this point over 10 of them have been confirmed to be canceled at this point.
Yeah, I think there's like
have that many in the works anymore.
Left. It's also it's one of those genres where there's a specific format where that fits, and trying to force it into games like Dragon Age, not going to work. Looking at Suicide Squad, Call of Justice League. Yeah.
We talked about the God of War live service. What the fuck were they thinking ever? The multiplayer title, the God of War Ascension, where there was a multiplayer mode, a mode works, not a title as a whole.
No.
Right? Because God of War Ascension's multiplayer was actually pretty damn fun. I'll give it that. But again, it was a multiplayer mode. You played it for a little bit, and then you were like, okay, I'm done now. I'm bored. It's not, live service, long-term title that's meant to keep you coming back over and over again for the course of several years, like Genshin or whatever.
I think the problem is that they just keep trying to make live service part of games that it just doesn't fit. Yeah.
I would say that's a big part of the problem, as well as the fact that everyone, or at least up until pretty recently, just about everyone was trying to get into the live service market, and so the saturation point had not only been passed, it had been passed by like 700 to 800, 1,000%. There were so many games that you just couldn't focus on really any of them. I mean, even for me, I like the Genshin Impact style, and the MiHoYo has made 3 of them now. They've got Genshin Impact, they've got Honkai Star Rail, and they've got Zenless Zone Zero. I like all of them, but I can't play all of them, I don't have nearly enough time for that because it's 3 different teams constantly adding new content to them, and I have to pick one. And then there's the clone Wuthering Waves, which I played a little bit of, and what I played I really enjoyed. And my understanding is it's only gotten significantly better since then. And then we've even talked about several other live service titles that are very similar to Genshin. So I'm just like, fuck me, what do I play? Like, I love Helldivers. I love Helldivers, but I haven't touched it in months because I just don't have the time for it. And it's getting all sorts of new content that they've been talking about. They've leaked stuff as well as confirmed various other things, and there's rumors that there's going to be some sort of major Earth battle on Super Earth. But like, my point is there's just so much I can't keep up. Even if I had nothing but time to play video games, I wouldn't be able to keep up. There's way too many.
Yeah, when I went back and booted up Helldivers, I think a month or almost 2 months ago. Back when the updates, we were talking about the updates, and it made me interested in like diving in again. And literally, I looked at it and I was reading through all of the new patch notes, and then I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing and just
play your way.
Like, yeah, it's one of those. I'm getting that now a lot lately, especially because as much as I love single player games and story campaigns, I also really love multiplayer games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, GTA Online, things like that. Something that I can sit down and just like play for hours and feel like I'm getting my money's worth, because there's enough content that's constantly coming out that I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. I also kind of have like a bit of a streamer / content creator point of view of it, because, you know, way back when I was super heavy into streaming on Twitch still, and I got affiliate, I was streaming a lot of multiplayer games. I was streaming like Red Dead Online, GTA 5 Online. I think at the time it was Modern Warfare 2019 or Modern Warfare 2, one of those two. I was streaming multiplayer a lot on that. So part of my interest in multiplayer games is also kind of circled around, is this content, or is this something that I can continue to see myself playing and getting my value out of?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have a constant stream of content, although that's useful, but the game has to be varied enough to make it interesting on a, you know, moment to moment basis, which old school Battlefield did that, you know? And so long as the game gives you something along those lines where you can change shit up, or things happen, you know, dynamically to where things are different each time, then that's the important part. And I think personally, like, I don't have a problem with live service titles. I don't. Like, great, if you want to make one, go ahead, but you need to make it interesting, fun, and you need to give me a reason to come back in such a way where I feel it's worth my time to play it. But at the same time, the games that everyone fell in love with weren't necessarily live service titles. Live service is basically MMO light, effectively, right? Yeah. And so everyone, you know, that wasn't, you know, my kid's age, has been gaming for 10 plus years. Everyone that's been gaming for 10 plus years, the majority of what brought them into gaming was titles like Battlefield and Call of Duty and the random one-off, like I mentioned earlier, God of War Ascension, and titles like that had multiplayer modes where you played the single player and you played the multiplayer. And I mean, heck, people skip the multiplayer in some cases, they skip the single player in some cases, Call of Duty probably being the most prime example, which is the reason why multiplayer became the focus, and which is the reason why live service ended up becoming the focus, because they saw that most people spent their time there, and so they wanted to figure out not only how to make them spend more time there, but also how to keep them there for a longer period of time in the long run of things. And again, not every game can be that. And I mean, this actually harkens back to this harkens back to where we started, in the sense of that the CEO said that Dragon Age should have been a live service title. Immediately after that, the guys that made, I think it's Doom, I don't have the article pulled up, I'm just remember reading this earlier.
Oh, it's Kingdom Come Deliverance II, those developers.
Nope. No, I'm pretty sure the Doom guys came out and said they basically urged developers to keep making single player titles, because the new Doom is single player only. And basically he was like, no, we need more single player games. Stop worrying about online and multiplayer. Oh yeah. Make single player. I have it. I don't have it pulled up, but I have the website where I saw it earlier today, even though I saw it, you know, days ago. In any case, single player is just as important in multiplayer as multiplayer, and in my case, or in my opinion, I think it's kind of more important. And I don't know, I sort of feel like it's not necessarily a bigger risk at this point, because so many live service titles over the past 5 years or so many, I would say way more than half of them have failed. So I found it's not actually the Doom creators, it's the Gears of War creators. They've urged people, and I don't know if this is Cliff Bleszinski, but it says Gears of War creator, so Cliff Bleszinski is probably the person. But basically, he's urged people to turn away from live service and just focus on single player experiences. Make the games great again. I mean, because you look at any other medium. There's no such thing, like, look at movies and TV shows and things of that sort. There's no such thing as, I don't know, There's different genres. That's literally the only difference between movies and TV shows. There's different genres, fantasy and sci-fi and realistic, whatever. Video games, you have all of that as well. And then you have the experience change as well, which is like, it's so unique to gaming. I don't know. I don't think video games would exist without it. I mean, Cliff Bleszinski, his exact words are, "Let single player games exist for fuck's sake. Not everything needs to be games as a service." And I don't agree with Bleszinski all the time, but I fully and 100% agree with this.
I never played it, but wasn't Gears 5, didn't it have some live service elements in it?
I can't answer that question because I haven't played it either. I played a little bit of Gears 4, and Gears 4 was the first like turning point as far as like being heavily focused on a really good single player storyline. I think they were trying to fit the somewhat Uncharted, like set piece kind of thing. And I thought 4 was actually pretty good. I was very disappointed with the first 3 Gears of Wars. They were fucking laughing stocks for storylines. They were written by fucking 10-year-olds, and then they were jokes of storyline. They were so bad. They weren't just like bro storylines, like the shooter bros, like that we made fun of with a regular Xbox. They were worse than that in the sense of like there was nothing serious about them, and they were trying to tell a serious story, but I was laughing my way through how awfully it was written. They were very good games as far as mechanics and everything else goes, but the storyline was just awful. 4, however, changed that and started making you actually give a shit about the world and the characters and everything else, right? And 5, so back to your question, 5, I haven't gotten to it yet. I eventually will, but Cliff Bleszinski wasn't working on Gears of War after 3, I believe. I'm pretty sure after 3 he left, and after 3 was I can't remember the subtitle, but the Gears of War that was like a prequel or something. No, not a prequel. It was like Gears of War Retribution or some shit. I can't remember what it was called, but it was the People Can Fly made it Gears of War. That's the developer. That's the developer. The developer People Can Fly made this. Yeah, they made this Gears of War game, and I can't remember what it's called at the moment. Damn, I want to look it up, but basically, after that, a new studio picked up Gears of War and started working on 4 and 5, and then now E-Day, the coalition is the ones that were behind 4 and 5 and are behind E-Day, but also People Can Fly are working on E-Day as well, which is we talked about a few weeks ago. Anyways,
Tim talking.
Yes, basically. Live services don't need to be in every game. I fully agree with Cliff Bleszinski. It doesn't need to be the case, and let single player exist. Yeah. However, sticking with the topic of EA, over the last week, what the hell's his name? Vince Zampella, which is best known for Call of Duty Modern Warfare, he did join EA. He, after all the debacle with Activision, and made the likes of Star Wars. What the hell are the subtitles?
Battlefront?
Fallen Order. No, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor.
Jedi Survivor. He made those as well as the other shooters. What are those called? Like, my mind is fucking blank right now.
The only other Star Wars shooters I can think of are Battlefront.
No,
Battlefront 2.
Not Star Wars. They're not Star Wars. They're the shooters. Titanfall. There they are.
Oh, okay, Titanfall.
He made the Titanfall games as well. If you didn't know, after the failure that was Battlefield 2042, Vince Zampella was put in charge of that because, his history with Call of Duty. And he is finally revealed some of what he's working on with the new Battlefield. What was it called? Battlefield Forge or something like that?
That's a great question. I don't think it actually has an official name yet. I think it's just the new Battlefield.
It does. No, not the Battlefield's name, but like the
Labs.
There you go, Battlefield Labs. Yeah. That's what it is. Battlefield Labs. Basically, he showed off that, which is your means of actually playing this new mode, assuming you sign up for it and get accepted. And you can playtest the new one. And there's a 5-minute clip that was released along with this announcement. They talked a little bit about the new Battlefield, but they were sort of talking about what Battlefield is, what makes Battlefield what it is, and they talked about Labs a little bit. And then at the very end of the trailer, the last 10 seconds. They
15,
actually gave us
and some change.
Something like that. It's not the longest amount of gameplay, but they gave us a look at what the next Battlefield will contain. So I'll go ahead and let you talk about my excitement.
So we kind of already have been given, I don't necessarily know if I would say confirmation, but it's kind of been presumed and not denied that the new Battlefield is supposed to be another modern take. We're not going back in time. As fun as it is.
Confirm that it is modern.
They confirm it? Okay. Before this clip or with this clip?
Do that again? Oh,
before?
No, I don't know if it was with this clip or not, but they've confirmed it's a modern setting.
Okay. So there's a couple takeaways that really sold my expectations, I guess I'll say, with this new game. The biggest one is that there is a sequence where they are running down the hallway and someone, when they turn a corner, someone on the opposing team shoots an RPG and it hits a building, and the building just like completely like just levels.
Yep.
Like the point of Bad Company 2 type level.
That's exactly my thought, and I'm stoked for that.
And I really hope that they don't change that, because the clip is from multiplayer. So part of me is still kind of expecting them to take that and making it a server side thing, like how Crackdown did with their Crackdown 3 multiplayer, I guess it was. Yeah. It was I really hope that they don't do that, but I can also understand if they don't make it client side, if they make it server side.
You want it to be client side? What you're saying?
I want it to be client side.
Okay.
I can also understand why they wouldn't make it client side, because the ecosystem of the hardware we have now compared to the 360 days is vastly more complex.
Yeah.
So logistically, it would kind of make more sense to make it server side, but I hope they don't. Aside from that, it looks like they are continuing vehicles in the actual multiplayer modes.
I don't think you'd be able to make a Battlefield without vehicles and have people happy with it.
The first vehicle they showed off was a modern era tank. I don't remember the exact model of it. I was watching a review video and the guy mentioned the exact model. I don't remember it. It looks like weapon customization is still a thing. I don't know why anybody thought it wasn't, but apparently it's worth noting. I'm trying to remember anything else from the clip that stuck out for me.
Yeah, it was really just the modern setting, the destruction, and vehicles are back. I mean, I think they basically read all of the comments ever since before 2042. Like ever since Bad Company, your mention of Bad Company, people have been pining, begging for destruction on the level of Bad Company, but bigger. So Battlefield 3 and 4, they were like, cool, let's tone down the destruction, but we'll add one major thing. So like Battlefield 4 is where the skyscraper come down. That's fucking
and that was cinematic only. Like you couldn't actually it was pre-rendered. So
exactly, that's the point. Like those were really cool.
Yeah.
The first time you saw it. Every time after that, you're like, great, let's change the map. You know, the destruction was, some of the walls came down, the parts of the pillar came down, but ultimately nothing really mattered. While Bad Company, you were in houses and you'd be in the middle of a firefight, and next thing you know, you can hear the building creaking, and you're like, oh fuck, I gotta get out of here. And it doesn't matter if it was 2-story buildings that were like, a 3,000 square foot house. It didn't matter because you were dynamically playing the game. It didn't matter that it was a fucking rectangle that got cut out of the wall when you shot a noob tube at it. Like, it didn't matter because it was really cool. It didn't matter that it was cookie cutter. It was just fun to be able to play and dynamically respond to how shit happened, and then watch the building come down either on you or you narrowly escape it, like Russ was talking about in the past. Even if it's that level of cookie cutter, people would be happy. They really would be.
Yeah.
But obviously they want and expect more given the better power of the newer consoles. And that very small clip of what you were talking about where it looks like the building collapses on itself, there's not enough there. And I'll be honest with you, I got the sense that it's not the building collapsing. It's like, imagine a Lego and you've got the whole building set up, but on the face side of it, you've got like one nice flat piece that has all of your details on it. And when you break off that flat piece, the details fell off of it, and then you'll be able to see all the rooms and stuff like that, but the building's still standing. So my point was like, imagine you took a knife straight down the side of it and you just took, that's what it looked like to me. But it's entirely possible that it's more than that. Maybe it is the whole building coming down. They don't give you enough in that little clip for you to really know. And so it looks like if you look at all of the talk around this, that basically there's going to be a level of transparency with this development that's going to be sort of unprecedented for Battlefield. And I think that us as fans will not only be able to play it, assuming we're accepted into this Battlefield Labs, but we'll also be able to shape what it becomes, which is really good, because basically they're going to be responding to us as fans, and that's, you know, hopefully they do right by us. And honestly, I think at this point they sort of deserve the benefit of the doubt. Because it's also a different team, different leadership.
It's also worth noting, in case someone is listening to this and this is the point that they're jumping in, this episode is the point they're jumping in from. It's worth noting that it was confirmed, I think by Vince directly, that they are actually making a full campaign, not some like multiplayer only little fucking side story thing that, and then you just like are shooting other players. It's going to be a full campaign. It's going to take hours of your time. I don't know how many hours. I don't think anybody knows how many hours. I wouldn't be surprised if Vince doesn't even know how many hours.
Between
it's so
10
early,
I guess.
Yeah. But just Vince's name alone and his very on point and very worthwhile pedigree, is his just how good he is and has been. I feel like this is going to be the Battlefield that kind of brings Battlefield back into maybe not a great spotlight, but definitely, you know, better than the last 3 games. Not saying that like Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1 were bad, but they weren't
so
as good as they should have been.
I'm going to hearken all the way back to 7 days ago. When me and Russ were discussing BioWare, where I basically said that we all said that Dragon Age was going to be the sink or swim for the studio, and if Dragon Age sank, then the studio was done for. And basically I said I think that was a little bit too close, or not too close, but too soon to say that. And I think it's possible, or not possible, the new Mass Effect is 100% that line. If that game fails, the studio's done for forever.
Yeah.
Well, bringing it back to Battlefield 2042, it wasn't necessarily the first, you know, failed launch. People weren't very happy with 5 or V, which I think is kind of crazy. I really liked the game, but I know. Yeah, I know ultimately that was when the series started to go down, at least as far as sales is concerned, but definitely 42 was a major, you know, hiccup and not good. In any case, this title, because of who's in charge of it, because of the way they're going about it, I think this is one of those titles that for EA and Vince and Battlefield and DICE and all that, I think ultimately this isn't the last chance for them.
Oh, no, not at all.
But if it fails, people will be extremely slow or wary of any future titles.
And especially something with Vince's name on it.
Yeah, which I think that's why people are going to be looking at this very, very closely. But also that's why they're going to have a heavy level of transparency with this title. They're going to be really careful about it. They're going to make sure that they go slow and they do it right. They're going to talk to all the fans. They're going to make sure they iterate, and they're going to go about this in a live service manner of release, or not live service, an early access manner of release. Yeah. That way, when they go full release, we might be 2 years into the game for all we know. I mean, it's going to be launched, but it's also not going to be launched, if that makes sense, because there's rumors that it's going to be fully launched sometime later this year.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be really, really slow, in the sense of they're not going to push it out and say it's done, have fun with it. They're going to be slow in the sense of just being really careful and following the fan reaction and making sure they do what the fans want.
It kind of makes me think of the Skate playtests. So I can talk about them, but I can't talk about the gameplay and the mechanics and stuff like that. So I am part of the Skate playtest. For those that are unaware, Skate was rebooted, is being rebooted, and they're making it a live service game. Ironically enough, it's the only live service that I'm actually happy about.
I feel like you're talking about the game right now, which you said you're not allowed to do.
Yeah, I'll cut this part out. Fuck it. I feel like they're taking the lessons, I guess we'll call them, that they're learning with the Skate playtest and applying it to Battlefield, especially because I feel like of all games, Battlefield definitely needs a player test type feedback that's longer than 4 days, or like you can't exclude to people in-house. Yeah. I think going out of the development studio, outside of their exclusive game testers that sit in a fucking closed room for like hours at a time, that's a good idea, because those 2, 3, 30, 40 playtesters in this closed room all sitting on 10 couches or whatever, they're all going to have some form of the same experience in terms of like stability and playtesting and all that shit.
You need to have a large play test or pool of playtesters in order to really get an idea. That just goes for any sort of test or poll or whatever. You need to have a really large base to get an actual good answer, basically.
So I think what they might do for, let's say they do hold out for 2 years, I could totally see them, quote unquote, full launching, air quoting for our audio listeners, this year, but only doing the multiplayer stuff. And they might have multiplayer on rotation where they'll have like one specific game mode or two, and then they'll test other game modes and see how people react to them. And then after they finalize all of that stuff, then they'll go full campaign.
Yeah, it depends. So like you look at the likes of Fortnite, right? Fortnite Battle Royale launched, and it was in early access for like 4 years or something stupid like that. And that was during some of the times where it was the most popular game ever, and it fully launched right around the time COVID came out. And it's like, this game's been fully done for years at this point. Like, seriously? And that's kind of what I feel like Battlefield's going to do. They're going to be very reactive to the fan base, like I mentioned, and they're going to be in early access, even though it's going to be done. And at that point, they're just iterating, adding more content, and giving you reasons to keep playing it. Yeah. Now, the only thing I honestly believe they're going to have to worry about is if it launches in a poor state. Doesn't matter, whatever is causing that poor state, lack of content or lack of variety, it doesn't matter, whatever it may be. They have to be really careful, because if the fan reaction is poor from the outset, how many people are going to be willing to give it another chance? 2 months later, or 6 months later, or whatever. It remains to be seen, I guess. I think what they have now looks very promising, and I hope that turns out to be the case.
Yeah. Yep. It's awesome. I've kind of said all I had to say on it, so.
Yeah, more or less. I was going to say the next thing to move on, it turns out Nintendo... So we talked about this, me and Russ did a few episodes ago. Man, I theorized, actually this was an episode you were in a few episodes ago. We theorized what Nintendo was going to do with their pricing for the Switch 2. They have confirmed that the Switch 1 will not drop in price. It will remain its current price. which means $350 for the OLED, $300 for the base model. They have not confirmed the price for the Switch 2, but logic just dictates it's not going to be the same price as what they currently have. Why? I mean, it's possible, but it seems extremely unlikely to me, right?
Did they specify which Switch model that they were going to keep? Because the only other thing I can think of is maybe they just get rid of the first Switch model, put the OLED where the Switch price is, and then make the Switch 2 the price of the OLED or $100 more.
They specify that the Switch 1's pricing will not change. That's what they said.
They didn't specify if it's the Switch 1 OLED or just the Switch 1.
I think it was both. A blanket term for both.
Okay.
I think it was a blanket term for both. That's the way I understood it anyways. And like I said, logic dictates, which if you also look at analyst thought processes, this is going to be a $400 device. Others have priced it around $500, which I still think is absolutely crazy. I think $400 is bad price, but
I think they'll sell it at a loss. I could see it costing them $500 to make, but I feel like they would price it at $400. Yeah. Somewhere thereabout.
I think $400 is
that's how much that's for, to be honest.
Reasonable. Yeah, it's the only reasonable price that I still think is unreasonable.
I'd rather pay $400 and not $410. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's just like 60 versus 70. Yeah. And the conversation we had, me and Russ had, like 400 is just, I don't know. In today's market on the handheld, when you look at the fact that the Switch 1, which I said this already, hasn't seen any price drop at all, not a single time since 2017, is insane. It's insane. We've seen the benefit that a dropped price would do. I mean, at this point, I've said it more than once that I think Nintendo, the reason they didn't release the Switch 2 was because they were hoping the Switch 1 would overtake the PlayStation 2 in lifetime sales, which I still don't think is going to happen, especially once the Switch 2 comes out. People are going to just go, $50 more for a Switch 2 or whatever the price difference is, whatever the price difference is. But if they had dropped this thing, which I guarantee they could have dropped the price at this point, if they dropped this thing down to 200, 150, whatever, they would have freaking exploded in sales, and they'd be at 200 million by this point rather than 150, which they're at now. They recently passed the 150 million mark. Like, they would just absolutely fly off shelves. They would not be able to keep, stock in. And at that point, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter if they were taking a loss in sale or in hardware sales. They would make the money up in game sales, because we all know they don't give a shit about their fans, and they're going to charge you $60 for a game that's 15,000 years old.
Here's Super Mario Odyssey again.
Super Mario Odyssey Remake 2 plus 1 and remake again. I mean, like,
here's Wind Waker HD remaster.
Here's this other fan game that we stole and are releasing that we totally made. By the way, this is a reference to the Super Mario Battle Royale thing, whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know.
The fucking Battle Royale. What?
You didn't hear about this? Let me look this up real quick so I can actually have the actual title of this.
It's wild.
It's not a battle royale Mario. It
almost kind of makes me think of
what
Smash
Bros. It is there's 100 people playing Super Mario, the OG Super Mario, and they're all on the same screen, and basically they're I don't know if they are speed running it or they're just playing it to not die, but more or less something happens and eventually people get kicked off, and whoever is the longest running player without dying or whatever wins. And this released as a fan mod, I believe, for PC in like 2020, and Nintendo was like, fuck that shit, shut it down, you fucking bastards, that's not cool. And then literally less than 12 months later, they released exactly the same thing. And when I say exactly the same thing, I mean, it was like, I don't think this has ever been officially approved or confirmed, but I'm talking like it looks like straight up ripped out of the mod, thrown on a Switch disc, and released on the Switch officially.
What the fuck?
It's called Super Mario 35. It was a 2020 online multi-platform game with battle royale elements. I'm looking at the Wikipedia. It says it was developed by Akira. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the official version of the game. It was released in 2020. It was made by Akira and published by Nintendo. But if you look up the actual history of this shit was so. Tetris did the same thing called Tetris 99, and basically someone was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's do that with another old school game," and they did it with Mario. And like I said, Nintendo straight up said they sent him a DMCA, the shutdown order. They said, "Fuck that! Don't use our property. That's not cool." And then immediately, like I said, less than a year later, released exactly the same thing. Like when I've been saying this over the past 10 episodes or so, Nintendo's scummy as fuck, and like it's really turned me off from them. And this was one of the big ones for me when it happened in 2020. It's a big one for me. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're gonna really do this to people? You're gonna say that's not cool and then steal their work?
Like it's one thing if you hire the fucking guy and pay him to make it for you, but if you just
at least that.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ.
And so anyways,
yes.
Going back to the Switch price, I don't know, man. $400 seems like a little bit too much for me, especially when you can buy a Steam Deck for cheaper than that, the lowest model, anyways. Yeah. And I mean, hell, you can buy a PlayStation 5 at $400 for that price. And I get there's a difference in portability, but I mean, hell, you can even spend $200 and then spend. I forget what the price of the highest model of PlayStation Plus is, but you can get the PS Portal with the highest tier of PS Plus and get your PS5 games without a PS5.
Just stream them over the internet or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft with their cloud services on Xbox, you can get it just about anywhere at this point, except for PlayStation and Nintendo. Although that's changing. I mean,
sorry.
I don't know. It's just a weird position to think. Nintendo is now pricing themselves in the range of modern hardware, but they're definitely not competing as far as like actual graphical output and such. So I don't know. They would have been way smarter releasing this thing at $300 because $300 to $400, meaning $100 difference.
Yeah,
that's a bigger ask than $70 for a game when they used to be $60. I mean, obviously it's $90 more, but especially in today's climate, or economy rather, I'm just sitting here like, is it even worth it?
Yeah, man, that's like, I don't know, 2 cartons of eggs now. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
What it comes down to is that, and it kind of burns my soul to say this, but Nintendo knows their audience, and they know that if they charge $400, it's gonna go out of stock. There's gonna be people lined up at the fucking doors of like Best Buys and GameStops and EB Games, if that's still around up in Canada, and like just all these other fucking retailers that are gonna stock it. They're gonna sell out. Maybe not the first 24 hours, but the first week they're gonna sell out of the first shipments. And yeah, people are gonna be disgruntled. But again, it's like the new hot thing from Nintendo, and everybody that's into Nintendo is always going to. Yeah, it's just they're playing the game is what it is.
The only saving grace here is I can't remember if this was last week or the week before, whatever week it was when we talked about the reveal of the Switch 2. I opined that based on information that I'd read and all that good stuff, basically that pretty much most everything would be released on Switch 1 and Switch 2 Nintendo games, right? Yeah. Obviously third parties would only support the Switch 2 because they can't make their games on the Switch work anymore. But because the Switch 2's higher hardware, as well as the DLSS equivalent, all that fun stuff, they would make their games on the Switch 2 because it's more capable. Nintendo did come out and say that they fully believe in exclusives, and that you need to have a reason to buy their hardware, which is 100% not just true, it's 100% fact. Anyone who says otherwise is silly, and there's a reason why Xbox isn't selling shit for hardware. But my point is, there will be exclusives. I still fully expect there to be crossover titles, like whatever Switch is going to release or Nintendo's going to release over the next year or so. most of them probably will be cross-platform titles that release on Switch 1 and Switch 2. Like Metroid Prime 4 is probably a perfect example. But we apparently have some exclusives that are Switch 2 only, made by Nintendo, to look forward to, giving us reason to purchase the console.
I can also see, because the Switch 2 is supposed to be fully backwards compatible with every Switch game, because the cartridges fit, even though the Switch 2 cartridges are keyed differently, but it'll still work. However, Nintendo's doing that.
Yeah, save for a couple titles, yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see them taking their existing third-party titles like Skyrim. I think The Witcher 3 is on there now too.
Yes.
I can see those games being patched with a fidelity or 60 FPS mode for the Switch 2. Aside from that, I mean, I really don't see another reason to slot it in at the $400 price point above the first Switch, other than the fact that it can play everything except for maybe a handful of games that the Switch 1 can play.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's probably quite a bit of titles in the works for the Switch 2 that we don't know about yet that are third party, like a lot of Xbox titles and or just third party titles in general that the Switch 1 just can't run anymore. There's been a lot of titles that have skipped the Switch. I've made sure to point that out every single week.
Yeah, there's a blatant difference between Skyrim's performance on the first gen Switch, the jailbreakable one, and the current gen Switch OLED. There's like a 20, I think it's like a 20, just under 20% like frame time difference. Like it's to someone who's not able to perceive the micro stutter, you won't notice, but like if you're actually putting them up against each other and like trying to graph them out, there is a difference. Like someone who's on PC that is susceptible to detecting those things, you'll notice it. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we'll see. I don't think it's going to be a failure. I don't think it doesn't matter. Like you mentioned, there's so many Nintendo fanboys out there, and not even just fanboys. Honestly, I think that's probably too strong. There are enough fanboys, but also there's enough just goodwill. God only knows why from Nintendo by just the general consensus, and moms and dads and stuff like that. They're like, oh, buy the Nintendo for the kid, and so they're gonna buy it. I mean, $400 is, in my opinion, too much for a new Switch. But I mean, for all we know, since I've mentioned this more than once, we don't know any sort of specs about it officially. We know we probably know them via leaks, but officially we don't know anything. And for all we know, there's some hidden stuff in there that's going to make it totally worth. I mean, we can. I wouldn't necessarily say officially actually for that either, but I was going to say some of it you can kind of say is confirmed that it's an NVIDIA Tegra processor, purely because, like we had talked about when we did the 3-man, that NVIDIA has been pissed off and has called out Nintendo on a couple different occasions now that they didn't announce the fucking thing.
And it was in their contract. It's running on NVIDIA.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course.
But it's an updated Tegra chip for sure.
Backwards compatibility.
Yes.
But anyways, enough. I don't know how to word this properly, but fuck Nintendo. Let's move on to Quickfire.
Yeah, Quickfire.
Yeah, so I've got quite a bit here, trying to do my best to parse out what's worth talking about and what's worth just mentioning. But we'll start with rumors are suggesting, due to a Take-Two, the guys behind Grand Theft Auto, Take-Two financial results, which means this is practically confirmed, not 100%, but practically confirmed. But the Xbox Series consoles sold 2 million units in 2024. 2 million total in 12 months.
This seems not high.
That's fucking direly bad. That's awful. I mean, just to put it into perspective, PlayStation 5 sold more than that during Black Friday weekend alone.
Yeah.
So it's bad, if that's correct. Again, we're labeling this as a rumor, but given who it comes from, it seems highly likely to be the case, which leads me into the second quickfire news, which is even more Xbox exclusives have been confirmed for PlayStation in this last week. Last week we talked about Forza. This week we're talking about Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition and Age of Mythology Retold. Both titles have been confirmed for PlayStation. Age of Mythology is, or at least, actually, I don't know if it's Age of Mythology or Age of Mythology and Age of Empires, but they've said that new content is planned. The only thing we know about release dates is Mythology is going to release on PlayStation 5 at the same date of its upcoming expansion, March 5th. I don't believe they come together unless you buy the premium edition or whatever it's called. Otherwise, you can buy that separately for Age of Mythology. And Age of Empires 2 is going to release later in spring, which I think is also the vague release date for Forza.
Yep.
As we talked about last week, it's whole slate. They're announcing their lesser popular titles now, and they're saving their big ones for events later and stuff like that. E3s type stuff. All the rumors suggest everything, all of it. Gears of War, Fable, Halo, etc. are going to be not just on rival consoles, but day and date on rival consoles. So the evidence is proving that to be the case. I actually, I'm going to hint at it now, but I've got a little bit of information on a possible major Xbox title, but we're going to talk about that on the Patreon side. So why don't you come over there and hear what I have to say? But moving on from Microsoft, the Metal Gear Solid Delta, which is the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, finally has a release date, and it's like a year after when they said it was going to release originally. They said it was going to release late last year, 2024. And then the end of the year came and we're like, the fuck, man, you said it was going to release in 2024. And well, it's going to release in late August 28th for PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. They did confirm that Ape Escape is going to have a crossover. PlayStation's Ape Escape, there's going to be some sort of ape mode for this game. Okay. I would presume this is PlayStation only, but they actually didn't specify. So
I better get a goddamn gorilla suit. I want to run around as Snake in a fucking gorilla suit. That would be the double entendre of that. Snake, gorilla suit. And then also just a man in a gorilla suit just sneaking around the fucking jungle, just like...
So
it's just funny to me.
The game is getting some upgrades in the sense of, so when MGS3 originally launched, it had the option to change up your camo on the fly, but it was like you had to pause the game, you had to go to menus, and you had to choose the right colors and the right textures and all that stuff to fit the area you were in. MGS4 changed that up to you had a smart suit and it did it for you, right? Well, this remake Delta is getting rid of that menu system, thank God. So they are giving you quality of life improvements for this new one.
That's good. So, I was gonna say if it's like Metal Gear Solid 5 or kind of a menu system, but also more just like an inventory system than an actual like menu system where you just switch your outfit in and out. Yeah. But actually just using the smart outfit tech would make so much more sense if that's the route they want to go.
Yep. So bringing it to Xbox, although this is not an Xbox made game, but Dungeons of Hinterberg, which was sort of a, I don't know if a beloved is the appropriate term, but it was very well liked title that was exclusive to Xbox and PC, has been confirmed for PlayStation for March 13th. It will also supposedly come with a bonus update. What's that?
5.
Did I say PlayStation 4?
You did.
Whoops. It's 5. Yeah. 4. It's an old console.
Guess what, Robert? Your PS4?
Yeah. There's someone at work that dude makes twice as much money as I do. And that motherfucker, he still has a PS4. He's like, I can't afford it. It's like, bitch, you just bought a new boat because you felt like it. You replaced your vehicle because you felt like it. Like, you've got more than enough money. Shut the fuck up and buy a damn PlayStation.
That's why you can't afford it, because you just bought a new boat and a new vehicle to put on his new boat.
No, he's got money. He's not poor. He's just choosing to be cheap in this regard. Frugal. He brought up the PlayStation removing PlayStation 4 games, and I was like, at this rate, it sucks to be you if you don't have a PS5 yet. It's 4 years of the gym. You can afford one. Or not. You can afford one. He can afford one, but if you have one, then sorry, whatever. Anyways, sticking with Konami, a new Castlevania is reportedly in the works. We don't know shit else other than that. I'm going to say, with the fact that what were they? Castlevania on PS3. I'm looking for it on I'm trying to remember the subtitles for them. What were they?
I haven't played a Castlevania game since the PS1, so I couldn't.
Lord of Shadows. Castlevania Lord of Shadows. This one and the sequel title, which was Lords of Shadow 2.
Really? It was numerical.
Right? Yeah, it was just numerical. For some reason, I thought it was a different subtitle. Anyways, I really liked these titles. They were 3D. They were very God of War-esque, and they were pretty damn good. I think they did a really good job with the Castlevania games in this regard. I didn't like the sequel as much as the first because this Belmont becomes Dracula, and they changed it too much for me. But anyways, they were still good games. The reason why I'm excited for this, even though there's almost no way this is going to be the case, but not Konami, Kojima, the guy behind Metal Gear, he walked by the development on this game, on this Lord of Shadows, and was like, hey, do you mind if I help you with this? And they were like, fuck, yes, please, step in and tell us how to do this. And
Take my computer, here you go.
Right. I don't think he can make your role. He changed a few things or suggested a few things here and there, but ultimately, I think it's really cool when Castlevania followed the 3D route that Lords of Shadows did, because I just really enjoyed the games.
Yeah.
We will see. It makes sense for that to be the case because Konami has been slowly working their way back into the realm of video games after they kind of abandoned it after 5. MGS 5 specifically. Yeah. So the next one is Steam has now decided to warn users that if you're going to buy an early access game, if the game has effectively been abandoned, meaning if they haven't updated the game in any way, shape, or form, or they haven't, had any sort of communication with the fan base, and it's been years, it'll basically tell you the developers don't work on this shit anymore. If you buy it, that's up to you. But just so you know,
I have one game, and I have a deep hatred for the abandonment of. So, trying to think back, I think it was way back in 2017. When 29-year-old Mike was a wee little 18-year-old lad. I bought a early access game. I think it's called Pamela. Pamela, and it's the weird part is the title is set up like an acronym. And they don't really explain why. I think it was supposed to be part of the story, but like the game was abandoned before the story was like finished. The premise was like really fucking cool though, and I honestly would say even ahead of its time for like 2014 is what I'm thinking of. 2014, because I graduated high school, and then like 4 months later I bought this fucking game after I got my first job.
Yeah, you're thinking back a little too far. The game initially released in 2017.
Okay, so it is in 2017. Okay, yeah. You're right. So I liked the premise of the game, and it's like your typical like survivor amnesiac type game that was really popular for the time. But what differed that game from the other ones was you wake up on this utopian island, or like maybe not really an island, but like
it's a utopian sea ravaged by disease.
Yeah, and it seemed like such a great idea, so I bought it.
Kind of reminds me of Dead Island.
Exactly. That's the other reason why I bought it. And it had problems, but it wasn't quite abandoned just yet. They were still releasing like bug fixes, security patches, things like that.
Yeah.
And then I didn't touch it for a few years. And when I went back to it, I found out it was abandoned. But like, I've only played an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe a little over 2 hours actually of it. And because I played over 2 hours of it, I can't return it. It's also been like way the fuck past the 2 week point. But Steam has been kind of lenient. Like if a game is like obviously abandoned and you've played an hour 45 out of your 2 hour time limit, sometimes they'll just give you the refund, especially because I think the game's like what, $20. But yeah, it's just like I'm still pissed to this day about that, because that looked like such a promising fucking game, especially for such a small development team. I think it's like 1 or 2 guys.
The last update the game received was July 21st, 2020, which was bug fixes and performance improvements.
Yep. And the game is still unplayable. You can't finish it. Like the story is supposedly fleshed out. It's not completely done, but like you can't get past like the first.
It actually says here that the 1.0 version launched June 18th of 2020. And that you get to experience the full story. It's a full game. So it almost seems what? It's necessity in the document. It's just a hey, we're done. We're going to do one real thing. That's what it looks like to me.
Well, like it's unfucking beatable, because there's a section in the intro area where you're like they're teaching you how to do everything. If you die, it spawns you in the medic bay, and the medic bay is in a red zone. So like the second you leave I don't think it's supposed to be a red zone. There's just like a hard as fuck like boss there. Not like a boss, but like a enemy type. And every time you die, you go back to the same med bay. So I spent a good like 20 minutes just dying in a fucking loop to this one random woman that looks like she's just like irradiated or whatever. And finally I was just like, you know what? Fuck this game. Just never played it again. But yeah, Steam, it's digressing. I'm doing my own Tim talk here. Steam adding an abandonment label, I think, is a good step, as much as I wish they would just fucking delete the game, because they have the power to do that. It's just a matter of if they want to do that.
I think it's a good thing. It's worth telling people, hey, just in case you don't know, this game isn't being updated anymore. This early access game has been abandoned. So
I hope they add that.
Money, or if you do, it's your choice. And
I hope they add that to that Pamela page.
I'm not seeing it. Because like I said, effectively 1.0 launched. They updated it a few times afterwards and then stopped releasing updates for it. So it's technically not abandoned, technically speaking.
Finishable. That's the problem.
I mean, did you play it after those last updates? I mean, I can't say. I don't know.
Yeah, I had went back to it after, I think it was mid 2020, 2021, something like that.
Gotcha. Well, anyways, moving on from one live service title to an MMO, which, like I said earlier, is effectively a live service title. Final Fantasy XIV's update 7.2 is adding planet terraforming, which is fucking wild when you consider what that game is.
When did they add space?
Huh?
When did they add outer space?
They added that with Endwalker, which was the most recent expansion, so 7.0, which was July of last year. They added the space. I mean, technically they were hinting at space before that in major expansions before that, but they actually allowed you to go to the moon with Endwalker. So this planet terraforming is a new community-oriented feature for specifically crafters and gatherers, which they've done this before. They had the island sanctuary, and then they had other zones that were specifically for crafters. They had different expeditions you can go on, again, for crafters and gatherers. This one, however, is very similar to the Ishgardian Restoration, which was the major town in Update 2.0 Heavensward. And basically, we as a community rebuilt the housing section. Like, we actually worked together as a community for like a year and a half, bringing materials and stuff like that. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We just knew that we were helping rebuild Ishgard, which was again the major city. And it became clear over time that we were rebuilding housing section because there was only housing in the first couple of major cities, and we're like, we really need a new one, and we would love it to be there. And so the developers were like, cool, you can have it, but you better fucking work for it. Which was really
I'll
cool.
give it to you, but you gotta build it. Yeah,
I mean, it was really cool. I mean, we're not talking like Minecraft or Valheim levels of creating. We were doing events and we were giving them materials and doing stuff to help make it happen, but we weren't actually physically doing it because it's an MMO, right? Like they are developing it. They probably had it done the whole year and a half. They were just slowly updating little bits at a time. And when they first gave us a space to walk in, we were like, oh, sure looks like a housing ward, but there's no houses here yet. And and it was still really cool being able to actually quote build the game. It's what it felt like. Yeah. And especially over the length of time. So this one, what they're doing is you actually get to go to different planets because they introduced planet hopping with Endwalker, and you as a community for crafters and gatherers can actually basically terraform these planets and make new areas. Like you can it sounds to me like they're actually moving towards that more Minecraft Valheim level of crafting. I don't think that's what's going to be the case because again, this launches with 7.2, which is soon, and that would be a major shift for Final Fantasy 14. But
especially for a decimal update.
Yeah, it's meant to be another one of those. So the Ishgardian Restoration was a community event. You had to work together with people to make this happen. Each server did it at different time periods. So if one server was giving more materials and crafting more than another one, they got this faster than the others, which was really cool. So the server was actually working as a whole, and I assume the same thing will be here. But I think it's really cool. It's definitely a unique way to get the community to play together, more or less.
Yeah.
And so, moving on from there, Capcom confirmed Onimusha 5, The Way of the Sword is the subtitle, in late December, and they have already confirmed another Onimusha 2. They are remastering it. This one seems to be a pretty typical remaster with some quality of life improvements and then obviously some small textures and frame rates and things like that. But either way, if you've never played Onimusha, 2 is the right way to start because 2 has the protagonist that stuck with the series after the first one.
With how many developers are announcing that they're going back and remastering and remaking all of these like OG games from like the PS1 and PS2 like golden era, it makes me think of that Dave Chappelle skit where he's like scratching his neck. He's like, "You got any more?"
What games? Give me games. Please.
Y'all got any more damn games?
Yeah, I'm totally cool with it, obviously. But
I'm just excited for the day that Tenchu finally gets its remaster and Russ just like shits his pants live on Twitch.
Oh, he might very well. He's gonna jump up for joy, and you're gonna just watch his pants fill with this. Maybe I'll convince him to do it on purpose on camera.
Yeah, we'll have to give him a bet. If Tenchu releases, he has to soil himself on camera.
Russ, you heard it here first.
Oh, man.
All right, let me get through these next couple pretty quickly because we're getting a little long. PlayStation Network went down yesterday, the Friday, February 7th, and was down into Saturday, today, February 8th. Most people have access to it again. It was down for reasons unknown. Actually, they haven't told us what yet. It took less than like 6 hours for someone to go, we need free games because of this, because people are fucking entitled and stupid. This is nothing like the 2011 down network outage PlayStation experience in the PS3 days where it was down for like 21 days. Like nothing.
And so that was like a social security
major hack. Yeah.
Big hack and like identifiers, privatized things. Free games for that makes sense. Not because some twat in a basement DDoSed Sony servers just cause.
But sticking with Sony, it came out that Randy Pitchford, or Ted Price rather, Ted Price, he's most likely going to be taking over Insomniac Games. Apparently, he was asked on a recent podcast that he was part of, or his most like in the game he wanted the most to happen but never did, was Resistance 4. They actually had, according to him, a really good like story and gameplay and whatnot all put together, and they pitched it to Sony, and Sony said no.
Was Resistance a good like trilogy?
Yes. Yeah, Resistance 1 and 2 were loved. Resistance 1 launched on PS3 and it was fucking fantastic. I remember when it came out, the level of realism that it provided over PS2 was like, holy shit. Look at the way the glass breaks and look at the way the materials respond, and it was awesome. Okay. The multiplayer was fun as hell. I mean, by the time 3 came out, people had gotten a little bit of fatigue with it because they came out relatively quick, and 3 was way more of a linear shooter that wasn't going for, I don't know, the uniqueness, I guess, that Resistance 1 offered, and it felt more like a Call of Duty just with aliens at that point. The multiplayer was way bigger, but definitely the series had sort of died by then. Not necessarily, but it was way more declined, and I think that was ultimately why Resistance 4 was canceled. Although we don't know when this pitch was canceled. I mean, for all we know, this was 2 years ago. I don't think that's the case, but you know, hopefully the series will come back, because at this point there's a lot of nostalgia behind it, and I'd love to see a new one. I really liked the way the series was going, and they definitely had room to keep going if they had a good story to tell. So hopefully maybe one day they'll return to it.
Insomniac Games is also just in a good spot financially to be able to be the face of that, you know.
So basically they go, hey Sony, let us do this, and Sony's gonna go, yes please, hopefully. Because they've been carrying the PS5 100%. So speaking of returning to franchises, the rumor mill states that Rocksteady said, oh shit, we're a one-trick pony, let's go back to Batman. Which I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. It's a good fucking trick, and I'll take more Batman, please. So hopefully that's the case, because we could use another good title from Rocksteady, because they know what they're doing. Sticking with not just, we'll just say WB in this case, because WB is the one behind this. Multiverse, their Super Smash Bros. Clone has been confirmed to be shutting down come May 30th. The 5th and final season for the game will be its last, and thankfully the game will still be playable offline, just no more online modes and stuff.
I imagine Rivals had kind of stole all their fucking players.
I mean, they launched a couple of years ago, and it was so bad that within like 6 months or so, they pulled it off, and they, quote, remade the game and launched it again last year. They relaunched it again last year. And so less than a year after that, they're canceling it. So, which is crazy, because when I played it when it originally launched before the relaunch last year, I actually quite liked it. It felt very much like Super Smash Brothers, but with WB characters, Scooby-Doo, and all that other cool stuff. It was just like, I mean, getting to watch Shaggy turn into Super Shaggy was fucking cool. Like, you know, it was originally a native cartoon, and they finally put it into an official thing, and I was like, yes, Super Saiyan Shaggy, fuck yeah. Like, it was cool. Yeah, right. And being able to play as Bugs Bunny and Batman and all these other stuff in a Super Smash Brothers setting just felt right. And unfortunately, they weren't able to deliver on it to make it a long-running title, because I think it was one of those that had that potential. You know, whatever. Moving on from there, Far Cry New Dawn, which is it's the standalone expansion to Far Cry 4, I believe, what it was.
I think it was Far Cry.
It's the one that
Far Cry 5 is the one.
It was Far Cry 5, yeah.
They copied and pasted Far Cry 5's map and just kind of put desert and then weird other plants and like buildings in it.
If you don't know, sorry, I'm about to ruin it for you. At the end of Far Cry 5, a nuclear explosion goes off. And so New Dawn is what happens after the nuclear explosion. And instead of saying it's a desolate wasteland like Fallout, they decided to make it a nice colorful, you know, like basically everything was mutated and it's all colorful, and there's animals and stuff that have freaking mushrooms growing on them and whatnot, and there's a new threat and all that crap. But actually, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Anyways, the whole point of all of this is to say that it got a surprise 60 FPS update for PlayStation 5 and Series X. So if you have the game, you can play them on modern platforms at a high frame rate. And we spoke about Battlefield earlier, but Battlefield 83 was just, oh wait, I'm sorry, not Battlefield 83, just 83. It's a new title called 83. It has been re-announced, and obviously I say Battlefield 83 because it looks like a Battlefield title to me. It's a title called 83, and they're, quote, promising authentic wartime FPS during the Cold War. They said specifically they are taking this game and they're making it as authentic and realistic as possible until it's not fun anymore, and then dialing it back to where it's fun again. And to me, it looks like Hell Let Loose, you know, that level of like, there's absolutely no HUD. Yeah, there's no HUD whatsoever, and they're trying to make it feel like a you know, you're in that time and you're like, shit, did I kill that guy? I don't know. I hope so. You know, so and you're watching the team, and it looks like a Battlefield. It looks a little less polished than a Battlefield would, because this is clearly an early access title, or will be an early access title, which actually has been confirmed. The developers have said they can release an early access within the next year on Steam.
Yeah.
But to me, I think it looks pretty promising, honestly. I believe it is already up on Steam, so you can go watch the trailer for it. If you are interested in that style of game, I would tell you to go look it up, because I think it looks good.
All right.
But that is all that we have for you guys on the free side. If you guys enjoy what we do, like I said earlier, consider joining us over on the Patreon side. We've got a couple of other topics to talk about over there. Like I said, a specific Xbox title that might be confirmed for another platform, might not be. Sony's deal with Katakawa might be getting bigger. We'll see what happens there. And maybe there's some GTA 6 news. Outside of that, we have a couple of more bigger topics, but, you know, like I said, if you would like to come listen to us talk more, consider giving us $3 so you can hear that news.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since I'm the one leading it today, Mike, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Tell your mom I said hi.
And that's it. Wrap for us. Have a good night, guys.